What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 40 Winners at War. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and this was a episode. It was a time and a half.
Yeah, and considering how we are all stuck inside right now, Wednesday is what I look forward to every week. And so this was just such a bummer. And if you all who watch us know, Alyssa and I, if you see my shirt, we are on Team Adam. So this was just sad, but also, I guess, fun to watch.
I think we kind of saw it coming because I think last week the edit wasn't very kind to Adam, and it didn't really get better this week. So, mm, is it better to get voted out or to be dragged to the end and your edgic makes it clear that you're never gonna win?
Yeah, so the tribal council was probably like the highlight of the episode. We see that Tyson flips the vote from Sarah back to Adam. And I don't know, I personally dislike the whisper tribal councils. I just feel like with the editing this episode, I'm not a huge fan of because I felt like the whole first half, we didn't hear anything about whose name is potentially on the chopping block because it was spent on other things. And then we don't even get enough information. Like, what was the plan? How did this come to fruition? Was it always Adam? Did it flip at tribal council back to Adam from Nick kind of thing? Like, I don't know. I don't like whisper tribal councils.
Yeah, I don't like them either just because I like to have an idea of who is going home. And I feel like as soon as they started doing the montage of everyone going to talk to everyone else, I was like, they're intentionally trying to confuse us because they know that the edit would make it really clear who is going home otherwise.
Yeah, I 100% agree. When they started wasting time doing the little montage where they just spit out everyone's name, I don't know. It's like, waste my time. I'd rather have one 30-second conversation of some sort of plan being solidified or some kind of relationship forming so we can see who's working with who's not working with who. Because I feel like last week it seemed that the three in Wendell, Michelle, and Nick were on the outsides, and then the old red and the old green tribe got together and formed a super alliance. This week doesn't seem like that's the case, as we see Kim at first throw out, let's do the vote between Adam and Nick, and then Ben rebuffs and says, no, let's try to steer it away from Adam, but then that doesn't come to fruition. So, like, what happened in that time period, I just sort of wish we saw more of that rather than montage clips of like hecticness happening. But I guess it makes it more interesting for viewers watching. But just personally, from a strategic standpoint, I would have liked more because now for the rest of like next week, we don't really have any setup for what is going to happen.
Yeah, we don't have set up for what's going to happen. And then also, who's going to be upset about Adam getting voted out? Because when Adam's name was first brought up, the camera like dramatically panned to Denise and showed her reaction. But then it seemed like Denise was kind of okay with Adam going home. And at first they made it seem like Ben and Adam were super close. And then stuff went down at tribal council. So it seems like Ben and Adam aren't close anymore. So it's like, who is upset that Adam is gone?
Yeah, exactly. Like, was it, oh, let's go with the flow. The tides are going towards Adam. Let's just go with the plan and vote him out because we don't want to be on the wrong side of the numbers. Did something happen at camp? I wish we had more information. So, tribal council, we see Adam feels like he's going to go home. So, you might as well start some drama and save yourself. And I feel like I agree. Maybe people on the internet are bashing Adam. I feel like a lot of the reception after last night has been sort of positive, but maybe we're just not going onto the casual side of like Facebook where people are bashing the players on the show. But I think it makes sense. Like, if you think you're going home, might as well go balls to the wall and try to maybe cause confusion, cause chaos, get the vote to flip away from you. We saw it at Edge of Extinction from season 38 with the Julia Carter vote going home. I feel like might as well try something if you know you're going to be going home anyway. And I think I'd rather, even though it is embarrassing that like you go home like that, I think you might as well do it. Otherwise, you're just going to sit with your tail in between your legs and just go home quietly. I don't know. I feel like it's respectable that he stood up and tried to cause chaos, even though it didn't turn out in his favor.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you might as well take that one last shot, because it's like, if you don't, then there might be that part of you that is always like, well, what if it was? What if this was an idol? What if like I could have done the thing? So
Yeah, and just fighting with Ben at tribal council, sure, I guess you can say like nailing in your coffin kind of thing. Big Brother, people do feuds or fake feuds, and we saw Michelle and Wendell have a fake dislike towards each other. So I could see how if you do stage a blow up at tribal, how maybe it could work out in your favor, because you want to keep people who are fighting, because the target would always be on them two fighting each other rather than the target shifting to you or your alliance member. So it makes sense, even though their fight at tribal council probably was not planned. It does maybe make a lot of sense to try to cause a lot of chaos and drama at tribal, just to maybe flip something, get the target onto Nick or something like that.
yeah, I think the main thing with the fight at tribal council is it didn't seem like an equal fight where they were equally getting mad at each other. Like Adam said that Ben talked to him like a child, but a lot of times when they fought, Adam like fought like a child, if that makes sense. Like it very much felt like a dad and a kid fighting where the kid's just like, yeah, 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 you know? And I feel like that was the kind of feeling at tribal council where it was like Ben was being kind of calm and cool and logical, and then Adam was not. So I feel like if you're going to stage a blow up fight, you need to make it so that it's like equal on both sides and it doesn't seem like you both just like are butting heads. Does that make sense?
I guess if you wanted to stage a fight, yes. Since this wasn't staged, then I guess it makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, tribal, it was so awkward when Adam was like, "Are y'all voting for me?" And then no one would talk, and then the vote happened. So I don't know. I think it made sense to try to blow it up. I think it's super respectable that you're going balls to the wall when you know your name is coming up on the chopping block. You had the right read that your name was going to come up at tribal council. So I don't really think you can fault someone for doing that. And considering how like Adam could have been the first boot off of this season, I feel like he was literally fighting from the bottom every single week, got votes at every single tribal council that he went to besides the Boston Rob tribal council. So, I mean, he made it far considering the start of the game was a little bit rocky.
Yeah, he did well, but I can't see him coming back from Edge. So like I feel like Adam is stuck where he is kinda.
Yeah, especially only one person comes back from the edge of extinction. And if it's similar to like season 38 or the first challenge from this season where Tyson won his way back, we sort of have the front runners for that already. And then it's sort of set, I feel like. We're just hoping it's at Final 8 and not at Final 6. We will keep putting that into the universe because Final 6 is just whack.
Yeah. It's hard to keep putting into the universe knowing it's already happened though. So
Yeah, so speaking of the idol at tribal council, for me, like we've been saying throughout this podcast so far, I think might as well go for it, even though it didn't work out this time and you sort of look like a fool. Maybe you embarrassed yourself at tribal council. It does have precedent. And so Adam put on Instagram today that he was inspired, like noticing it, realizing it, because in South African Survivor season 6, there was an idol on the podium at tribal council. Similarly, in Australian Survivor this past season, there was an idol at tribal council too, but they also had a clue to find that idol at tribal. And obviously, Australian Survivor just finished airing, so the people on Winners at War didn't see that, but it is a thing to have idols at tribal council in international Survivor seasons. And so I feel like US Survivor needs to get their stuff together and have some idols at Tribal Council, because imagine if this thing worked and it was an idol. That would have been such a freaking big baller move. It would have been so good on TV.
Yeah, and I think we talked either last week or the week before about like that shelf full of trinkets by the
Mm-hmm.
voting podium and how everyone was looking for idols there. And so I guess it's like it would have been cool if it had happened, but also I feel like it kind of would have been a cop out too, like because there's no precedent for it in American Survivor. So
Yeah, I feel like you'd sort of have to do the Australian Survivor way and maybe have a clue that sort of leads you to pay attention or gives you a hint, like, oh, look at the podium, and then you notice the emblem. So, yes, I thought it was funny. I saw some tweets. People were saying if Boston Rob had gotten up and pretended or tried to use the podium as a hidden immunity idol, Jeff would have changed the rules and said, yes, it was an idol. And I just thought that was funny.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess Adam gets voted out because he doesn't play the idol. Well, he plays the not idol.
Yeah.
And
And so people are joking, though, that watch that this idol podium is going to be on the next Ghost Island season. And so I thought that was funny as well, because imagine if someone got some big ass thing like this at Ghost Island, like Wendell's thing from Ghost Island was a huge thing that he had to hide as well. So it'd be sort of funny. I think respectable, might as well go for it. I think the only thing that's maybe questionable is when Adam was saying that the idol or the thought of the idol made him play more ballsy. And I'm just not sure about that, because if it's not even for sure an idol, it's like less than maybe 50% chance that is an idol, and then to go balls to the wall like that, maybe questionable.
yeah, like maybe go balls to the walls if you have a legitimate idol that you know is legit. But if you have a hunch that something is maybe an idol, no.
Yeah, I risk it for the biscuit. I think the logic is there. And maybe when your back is pushed up against a wall, it makes sense. But I don't know. I feel like if you don't know for sure that it's a real idol, I feel like you might need to be more cautious.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Just because also his reasoning for thinking it was an idol is because they were both fleur-de-lis, and it's like sometimes seasons just have the same symbol throughout because that makes it look cohesive. So,
Just pull Jeff aside. Hey, can you check this? When I'm leaving tribal council, or grab it maybe when you're leaving tribal council to check it or something.
yeah.
So, yes, Adam was voted out. Was this the right move or not? I personally am thinking, even though we are a little bit biased towards Adam, that voting Adam out right now is not really the right move. I think for someone like Nick, Michelle, or Ben, I think they are sort of backed into a corner right now, because Nick, Michelle, and Ben sort of need to go to the end with the three of them, and somehow the three of them make it to the end together, because in the Survivor universe, they're sort of seen as the lesser tier winners. I feel like if any of those three go to the final tribal council with a Tony, with a Kim, even if Tony and Kim don't play good games at all, they never made one strategic move, just the fact that they made it to the end, I think could warrant a jury vote. Like, how could someone like Tony with a huge target on his back make it to the end? No matter how good of a game you played, I feel like people might be biased towards voting Tony versus someone like Nick or Michelle, who have the sort of lesser Survivor legacies.
Yeah, I think the thing about voting Adam out right now, though, is that it was something that the majority alliance could agree upon. And so it's like if you're in the majority alliance, you want to be able to like have a vote that's quote unquote an easy vote. And then it ended up not being an easy vote, but it also I think this vote was interesting because so many names were thrown around and you kind of got to see who threw around what name. And so it's like they kind of got to see the cracks in their alliance without actually having to do anything about it right now, because the person who ended up getting voted out was outside of their alliance. But then they also saw, like, oh, so and so is willing to vote for me, or someone else brought my name up, etc.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's weird because there's so much talk. Even Alyssa and I have been like, oh, the big dogs need to stick together. The old school players need to stick together, yada, yada. And now that the big dogs are getting together, it's sort of the opposite where the lesser tier winners of Survivor maybe need to bond together and form some kind of alliance, because I just think the road to the end for someone like Nick, even if he makes it to the end, if you're sitting next to the legendary winners or Tyson, even, I don't know how you can win a jury vote when all of like their friends are on the jury, kind of thing. Even if you played a super great game, I just think the cards are stacked in your favor. So I guess I'm interested to see next week and the weeks to come if this is a turning point for the downfall of the like lesser tier winners. And maybe they aren't thinking that out there, but like we've heard in every single Michelle confessional that she wants to prove herself in this game and she wants to make those big moves. So she sort of knows that the reception of her win was lesser in the Survivor community. I don't know. I just see such an uphill battle. Like, how can you win at a final tribal just sitting next to one of those players?
Yeah, and I think also we see in like next time, the like preview for next episode, we see names getting thrown out, but none of them are really the big player names either. So, except for maybe Jeremy. So, I think it's definitely going to be, it'll set the course of the rest of the season. I think it now the lesser tier winners start getting picked off.
Yeah, which also is weird because if you vote out all of Nick and Michelle back to back next, and then Ben, whatever, then you have all the big name players. You're going to have a final three with Tony, Tyson, and Kim. Like, that makes zero sense as well. So I feel like you sort of want to keep maybe the lesser tier winners around because then it makes final tribal council easier for you because they have maybe less respect on the jury because they played recently and they only played one time. And it seems like the people on Edge are holding a grudge that all of the old school players were voted out first. So it's weird. I think the whole hyena, whatever, lion hyena talk is just very interesting because yes, the big dogs can get together, but I don't think you can vote out all of the hyenas. And maybe now Nick and Michelle can go far, but I think they're maybe at a final three losing spot right now because I just can't see them beating any of those big name players.
I think Nick especially has a problem just because he's not like in anyone's good graces, really. Like, he threw a tantrum basically after last tribal. And then it's like he never really stopped his squirrely behavior. Like, he never stopped doing what made people want to vote him out. And then, like, anytime you throw a tantrum after tribal, it's just bad. So
I agree. I think Michelle handled the Wendell vote out really, really good. Like, she was salty in her confessionals, but she never took it out on her tribe mates or other players. Michelle, if she makes some flashy big moves like Denise, maybe could rise in stock. I don't know. Nick just handled it so poorly, the Wendell vote, and then he was sort of whining about it. And then when Tony comes up to him at the start of the episode, I was like, okay, great. You know, Tony, this is super good to approach. And Tony handled it super well. And just Nick, I don't know.
yeah, I think there are good ways to handle it and bad ways, and the bad ways are basically anything that's not good, if that makes sense. Like, there's no neutral way to handle a tribal council like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
it was not a good look for him.
I agree. And then at the Adam Tribal Council, we see Nick complaining, I would say, saying that no one is playing this game if this is the winners at war. This is such a pitiful winners at war kind of thing. But then he doesn't really do much. And then he says at Tribal, like, oh yeah, this is more like it. After the vote isn't on Nick anymore and it's solidly flipped, or now maybe Adam has gotten more votes. I was like, wait, Nick, you like it when the vote isn't going for you, and that makes the Survivor gameplay good. That's not, I guess, how it should go. So that's sort of questionable. And like, he tried to make chaos at camp, talking to Tyson, saying people were throwing his name out to try to get the vote to flip. I don't know. I just think Nick's stock went down tonight.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Like, it was when like Dean was like, "Oh, Goat Army assemble," talking about everyone else. It's kind of like, "Oh, no one's playing this game," but like Nick, other people are playing the game. You just aren't. So
Yeah, and I guess it goes to show maybe how the one-time winners, it's more difficult to maybe read the room if you're on the outs, like we saw Kim in the premiere episode, to have such a dominant first time, and the first time is the one you win. Maybe it's more difficult to adjust. It just, for everyone giving Adam crap about being whiny on the show, I feel like Nick was whiny this episode.
yep. So yikes at Nick.
Yeah, so we also see the Edge of Extinction segment, and they have a clue which said, as a winner and fan, you step back and assess. Sometimes when history repeats, it can lead to success. So good on Danny and Parvati thinking about the last Edge of Extinction season. Like, I would not think that necessarily, and like be able to say, oh yeah, Aubrey found this in this spot. I think you could look at the clue and see the step back and assess, and maybe be able to think of the steps, and then the history repeating itself would make you think of Aubrey. But I'm like, wait, that would not come to my mind.
Yeah, and like obviously we don't see everything, so maybe they were spitballing for a while before they came up with the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then like obviously that's what they showed us. I thought it was interesting that they all went like off in pairs, because it was just like, it's kind of like when someone goes searching for an idol on the main island, like you don't want to leave someone alone to go searching. But then
Yeah.
after they found the advantage and were talking about selling it, they ended up sharing their like plan with everyone, which was, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that was something to note. And by everyone, Parvati does say the 6 in her group. So, and we see Natalie say it too, that Yul and Wendell are not in the cool kids group of the people who were voted out earlier. And then I don't know, I feel like that left sort of a sour taste in my mouth, because the Edge is cliquey. It's the old school players and Natalie who got there first, who feel like because they suffered more, they can exclude Wendell and Yul because they got there later. And I don't know, I feel like that made me so sad to see, because there's definitely some kind of weird power dynamics there. And then to be Wendell and to
Wendell and Yule were the ones who voted a lot of those people out, though.
yeah. So like, okay, yes, they're salty, but then like, oh, you're Wendell, you just got to the Edge after you're blindsided, and then no one wants to show you around. Feels bad.
Yeah. Eh. Like, not that they deserve it, but like, I can understand why the old schoolers are salty. So
Yeah, which is interesting. Like, okay, yeah, as a viewer, feels bad. I feel sad for these people who are getting left out. But I wonder, in like the jury or in real life, if this season has taken a toll on people's personal relationships, because it does seem like the Edge has a lot of animosity on it and a lot of hatred brewing.
yeah, I feel like we'll hear about that just during the reunion show. I feel like the reunion shows for returning player seasons are always more interesting. Like, there's more gossip.
Yo, if a reunion show happens.
True. Yikes.
I know. This is the only time where I feel like a reunion would be cool and not super one-sided. And now
they can Zoom call in.
And then we hear everyone's unmuted damn microphones. I'm like, oh my God. Literally in class, when people don't know how to turn their stuff off, I'm like, can you STFU, please?
Yes. But anyways, the advantage that Parvati and Danny find when they go exploring is the 50-50 advantage,
Ugh.
where basically it's a coin and one tribal council you get to flip it. And if it lands with the safe side up, you're safe. And if it lands with the not safe side up, you're vulnerable. And they sell this advantage to Michelle for 4 coins, 4 fire tokens.
This
And that was straight up highway robbery.
this has got to be the worst survivor advantage ever. Like, who in production, cast, whatever, came up with this idea? Like, literally, this is all chance. And it takes no strategy to flip a coin. And yes, you're safe. No, you're not safe. I don't know. I personally don't like it. I feel like it takes away the integrity of the game because the game is about strategy. How can you outwit, outlast, outplay? If your game is down to chance in a 50-50 probability coin flip, I don't know. I personally don't like it.
Yeah, like I feel like other advantages that are still kind of like Jeremy's safety without power is kind of like I don't think it would be a fun advantage to play, but it does take strategy
Yeah.
to play it. And it's like strategically, if even if you play the 50-50 advantage at the right tribal council, it still might not get you the result that you need.
Yeah.
So
It's like a half, I don't even know, like an idol that works sometimes and doesn't work other times. So it's like, okay, yeah, Michelle plays it, she flips it, and it votes safe. And then what? The next person with the next highest votes goes home. If it says not safe, like you're not going home. I don't know. I feel
what
like
I
mine,
don't understand is it played like an idol or is it played before the votes are read?
I think it's
Or
played
like before
before.
people vote?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure, but I guess it would be a difference if it was played like an idol versus played before the votes are read. Because if it's before the votes or before people even go up to vote, then people won't vote for her. And then it's like an individual immunity win at a challenge versus an idol.
Yeah. So
I don't
I
know.
just don't like that advantage.
Yes, I am not a fan. Like, go, last season when Dean just flipped a coin and then got to have an idol nullifier to nullify Janet out of the game. And it's like literally Janet's $1,000,000 chances because she could have probably, she had the idol, she would have made it to fire. And then even if she was put to fire, she was the fire goddess and could have won fire, made it to final 3. And it's like her whole survivor game was literally in a coin toss. I don't know. I do not like, why is it a coin toss?
It's like too much luck, basically. Like, yeah, luck does play an element in Survivor, but if you let it be too much of an element, that's when people get frustrated.
Yeah, I agree. I just feel like the game is about strategy. This is not really any strategy besides when you're going to play it. And if you feel like you're going home, are you going to play it? This advantage, this just sucks. Who came up with this? They need to not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Alyssa said, 4 freaking fire tokens. This was interesting because apparently now people can create the listing of what they want to sell things as. Pre-merge, we did not see that people could make up a price for items, and they were all 1 fire token. So now each week you can just deduce who has the next number of highest fire tokens. So now if everyone is talking on the edge, Nick has 3 and Denise has 3 fire tokens and Kim has 2 and Sophie has 2, Sarah has 1 because of the other time. So it's like you're just going to give it to the person who has the largest number each week. I don't know. It was weird that you can just make up the number now.
Yeah, and I think it's also weird because it's like in Winners at War, no one is going to say no to an advantage. Like Michelle paid 4 tokens for basically the shittiest advantage. Like, if someone gets a better advantage, like an idol or an idol nullifier or whatever, then they're going to spend as many tokens as they have on it. Like, I think the idea is supposed to be like, oh, you might like offer it for a lower price to make sure that someone will buy it, but that's not really, someone is going to buy it. So,
Yeah, they might as well bleed people dry. But I don't know. 4 fire tokens was such a ripoff. I feel like weighing pros and cons of having this advantage, like, okay, yeah, sure, you can say Michelle was left on the bottom of the last vote. Wendell got voted out. She wasn't in the loop. So maybe you want to buy it for 4 so you have something in your back pocket because maybe you think you're getting votes at one of the next tribal councils. I think it doesn't last that long either. So it's only a few tribal councils that she can play this. So, like, okay, maybe, yeah, that makes sense to buy it for 4. But I also feel like if you're thinking, okay, I got offered it this week and they want 4, they probably know that I have 4 fire tokens, maybe, because she probably knows Nick has 3 and she knows that she's the richest person out there, or she thinks she's the richest. So it's like, if you buy this, that means next time something gets sent over and you find something in your bag, it's just going to go to someone else on the island. Maybe you say no in the hopes that they will try again next time someone finds something, and then you just keep getting funneled advantages and you know where all the advantages are. I just feel like it's sort of risky that you bought something for 4 and now people know that you have 0, and then you're not going to be offered the advantages anymore, versus other people on the island are going to start getting offered the stuff and you don't know where that information is.
well, it's worth noting, did the 6 tell Wendell and Yule that they sold it to Michelle, or did they not? Because if they didn't, and Wendell is the one to find it next episode, he might still try to give it to Michelle if he still thinks she has fire tokens. So,
Yeah, so I guess it depends. Can someone on the edge with not all of the information, so disinformation like Wendell, be able to sell it to someone who has 0 fire tokens? Or will production be like, no, you're not allowed to sell it to them because they can't buy it, sell it to someone else, like,
no, I
here,
think
give
the
it
whole purpose is that they're supposed to guess who has fire tokens. Like, it's good for production if they try to send it to someone who can't buy it, because then it's like dramatic. Like, I don't think that production would intervene to be like, no, this person doesn't have enough fire tokens.
Yeah, I guess I feel like we need the rules, because I feel like production, from my point of view, would want people to buy advantages because they love their advantages. And if you sell it to someone who has 0, they can't buy it. And we want another advantage get in. So let's make sure you sell it to Nick or someone who doesn't have 0, kind of thing. So I don't know. We do need the rules on this. Do they get told that you can't sell it to someone if they have 0, or are you still allowed to sell it to someone even though they have 0 fire tokens?
Yeah. So it's all very questionable. The rules aren't clear.
So I don't know. Michelle, 4 fire tokens. If you don't buy it, maybe you don't get offered again. And so you might as well buy it now. You don't know when the next advantage is going to come your way. So, like, it makes sense to buy it. But 4 just seems like a lot, I think. The secret scene that was posted today with Parvati buying the peanut butter, she seems super happy. She was sharing it with the other old schoolers. And so maybe buying it for 4 fire tokens gains you some jury favor. But, like, I don't know, it just seemed like the whole first 30 minutes of the episode was building up to justify why Michelle spent 4 fire tokens on this, because they literally had to have the reward challenge so Michelle could get the fortune cookies, so that we would understand why her logic was to buy it.
I wonder if, like, production planted the fortune cookie messages. Like, I want to know if they just randomly were assigned fortune cookies, or if, like, production specifically tried to sway the game via the fortune cookie fortunes.
Now I was like, who the heck wrote these fortunes? Because they were literally so related to Survivor. And Michelle's ones was like about coins in the purse, and you're like take a leap of faith. I'm like, oh my God, someone is writing these and trying to influence things.
Yeah. But speaking of the reward challenge, Sarah was on the winning team. She did not go on reward. She gave up her reward to Nick because it was Nick's birthday. Oh, so sweet.
Rodney from White Collar, No Collar, Blue Collar must be so pissed off right now.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting move because Sarah insisted that it was just a human thing, but everyone is saying that it's a strategy thing. So I think that's gonna come back definitely next episode because it seems
Yeah,
like people weren't happy with Sarah.
I feel indifferent toward the move. I just feel like Tony was saying, why did you do that kind of thing? I think Tony handled the situation well. It just seems like after Sarah did it, her eyes were on her unnecessarily. Her name was coming out of people's mouths unnecessarily. And so it does seem like, even if it did come from a place of human nature, good heart, and you wanted to give the dude a birthday lunch, it seems like it just brought more attention to yourself, which isn't necessarily good.
Yeah, I would say definitely not good. Like, it's a nice thing to do, but when you're in a game of strategy, everyone assumes that everything's strategy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like even human nature, great. But people are all going to talk about you. And I think on a newbie season, maybe this works. The person will feel indebted to you. They want to pay you back. But I think on an all winner season, all returnee player season, we see Nick say that he doesn't care that she gave him a birthday lunch. He will still vote her out. And so I think trying to maybe garner favor and get an ally out of the person who was left out of the vote last night by doing something big like this isn't going to work in a returnee player season if she did mean it to be as strategy. Like Nick is on the bottom, I want to curry favor.
yeah, and so, like, since she insisted it wasn't a strategic move, I'm more inclined to be like, okay, that was a good move then. Because it's like, if your intention is to do it for strategy, then it just looks bad. But if you're just like, I want to give someone a nice birthday present, that's sweet, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
And it's believable. Everyone always talks about how Sarah had such good relationships and Game Changers. Everyone thought that they were her best friend. So it would make sense that she's trying to like be friendly. But I think also when you have that reputation of being able to stab your friends in the back, like Adam said on the episode, that doing something this flashy, even if it is good nature, probably draws bad attention towards you, which is just the way that it goes.
yeah. So, like I said, I think this is going to come up again for Sarah next week. It sounds like people are wanting to split up power couples, like the Sarah Sophie power couple. Jeremy's name gets thrown out in the teaser for next week. So, I'm personally excited to see the way this goes and whether or not the Adam vote out has any ramifications. Because, like we said, because of all the chaos, we didn't really get to hear like who was going to be actually affected by Adam being voted out. So I'm excited for next week.
Yeah, I mean, we have nothing else to look forward to. So, Survivor once a week is all that we got. And then listening to podcasts after the 1 hour show is what we got to spend our time doing now.
Yeah, we need to have at least 70 hours of Survivor related content in order to fill our bleak coronavirus days. But
Yeah.
we'll see you guys next week for Podcasting Survivor. We might do more with the challenge, we might not. We're just playing it by ear. But we'll see you guys soon. Bye.